Hey everybody, welcome to Tea and Chocolate. I am delighted to have a very special person that I just recently met. Her name is Betsy Wurzel, and she is the founder of a podcast called Chatting with Betsy. And Betsy has focused her podcast on Alzheimer's. So this is going to be a really interesting conversation. She knows a lot about the topic. And I'm in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. And Betsy, thank you so much for joining me. And where are you? In New Jersey, exactly?
Thank you for having me, Lauren. I am in Island, New Jersey, about 45 minutes from Manhattan, New York.
Okay. Well, it's been lovely to chat with you in that whole podcast community. And I'm glad I have the opportunity to get to know you today.
Thank you. Same here.
So Betsy has shared with me briefly about her husband who passed on at a fairly young age and was diagnosed with Alzheimer's at an early age, and Betsy will share that. But I'm curious to know actually how you met your husband. Would you be able to share that? Yeah. And then, thank you. I'm just really curious about that, and just let us know how he evolved into getting Alzheimer's at such a young age.
Sure, it's kind of cute. I met Matt on a canoe trip sponsored by a church, and I was living in Tennessee at the time, and I flirted with him because I figured I'll never see him again, so who cares what he thinks? And I flirted with him. Then I saw him a year later at an activity, and I said, well, I'll be moving back up. And I flirted with him again. And then I saw him the following, September of '79, and I didn't say anything to him. And then I finally got the nerve to say hello, because I am shy in person, and Matt was also shy. And we started talking, and I invited him out to my birthday dinner, and flirted with him the whole time. I thought I would be cool and not flirt, but flirted with him the whole time. Then he asked me out the next day, and we were together ever since. We were married 39 years, but I knew him for 40 when he died.
Oh, that's a blessing. And you both have a son. A son came out of that marriage.
Right. Yes. My mom, moms have insight. We went to the movies, our first date. We saw 1942, actually. I remember the first date. And when I came home, my mom said to me, you're going to marry him. I said, well, how do you know that? And I just went to the movie. She goes, I know. He's the one for you.
Oh.
I don't know how.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that with me today. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So if you would kindly just tell me when, then share with the audience at what age he was diagnosed, and go from there.
Sure. Matt was diagnosed at the age of 56. I had to fight for that diagnosis. I started noticing things at home. Looking back in hindsight, he was showing signs for probably a year, if not more. At work, his employer, employees, coworkers started noticing changes. I did not know that he was talking to the company doctor. He didn't tell me that. I was called into his disability meeting. It was the first time in the company history they ever had a spouse in company meeting. Prior to that, I did get him tested by a neuropsychologist. Back 11 years ago, they didn't know what they know now. I didn't know back then what I know now. And we were told he's too young. He can't possibly be that bad. He's too young. I didn't know myself you could get Alzheimer's at any age. Matt's family history on his mom's side is Alzheimer's. He was the first to have early onset, which happens before the age of 65. And he was treated for depression. Usually they are misdiagnosed. Of course they're depressed. Who wouldn't be? Who wouldn't be depressed when you can't do your job, when you're confused, and how scary that must be? And So he was treated with depression. And then one day he asked me what time Sunday school was, and he taught for over 20 years. And Matt was a jokester. So I said, "Are you serious? Or are you kidding? Are you
Yeah,
kidding me?" I said,
right.
"No, I'm serious." I said, "What time is it on your watch?" He said, "I don't know." He didn't know how to tell time.
Mm.
And then I went back to the neurologist and I said, "You know what? You better call this what it is and get him started on medication, because this is not depression anymore." And unfortunately, Lauren, I had to fight for Matt even at the end of life. And as caregivers, I have to say this because I'm so passionate about it. Educate yourself on your loved one's dementia. Everyone should be educated about Alzheimer's. It can happen to anyone. Nobody is immune. Alzheimer's is just one of the many different types of dementias that are out there. And if you feel in your gut, I always say go by your instinct. If you feel the doctor's not correct, then go see another doctor and keep seeing a doctor until you get peace of mind, is what I highly suggest.
Mhm. When you, the early signs, when you had that Sunday school sort of experience there, and you thought that his coworkers had said like even a year prior there were the signs. What kind of signs were there? Like just forgetting things?
Yes, yeah. Well, Matt was always, I call it scatterbrained. And I had a feeling he would get it early. But when I mean early, I meant like at 60. But he was earlier. He was more forgetful. And he didn't tell me, but at work, he wasn't able to do his job. They took the forklift truck away from him.
Right.
He made major mistakes. I'm so grateful they didn't fire him. They knew something had to be wrong
Yeah.
with Matt.
Right.
And that's why they put him out first on short-term disability and then long-term. Um, it was incredible when I sat in on that meeting and they said what Matt had done. And I said, "Matt, do you remember that?" And he goes, "Well, if you say I did it." They don't even realize sometimes what they're doing. He didn't know how to get around town anymore. He grew up here. He grew up in this area his whole life, and they were adding an extra left-hand turn lane on this major road. He It got him so confused. I couldn't figure out why. And I go, "Matt, you just go straight like you always do."
Yeah.
He would avoid it. He'd go all the way around to avoid it. He didn't know where to put the recyclables. His driving, Matt's eyesight was immediately affected, his
Okay.
perception. He was driving in between two lanes
Hmm.
and not even realizing it. Um, it it's so it's so bizarre when they start showing the signs.
You said that his mother had Alzheimer's.
Yes,
Who else? Was it your dad or?
my dad, Matt's grandma, Matt's uncles, his aunt.
Okay, so what have you learned, if anything, about the science behind the DNA, that it's a family, sounds like it's a family genetic thing there in his family. Have you learned anything from in your?
Well, it can be genetic,
Okay,
but it doesn't always have to be genetic. My son
yeah.
is at very high risk, extremely high risk of getting Alzheimer's.
Hmm.
Not just because it's in the family, but also because he has a cognitive disability to begin with.
Yeah, yeah.
And personally, I don't know if I'd want to know if I had it, because there's really isn't anything I can do except, diet, exercise. Um, there's, you can't remove your brain. If you have breast cancer, you can remove your breast or any other part that's removable, but you can't remove your brain. And, I would rather not sit and worry about it. My son does not want to get genetically tested. He doesn't want to know.
Uh-huh. Okay. So out of curiosity, are you eating specific foods to Help preventing?
No,
No.
no,
Okay.
I feel this way, Lauren.
Yeah.
Yes, you could exercise, you could eat. I just read yesterday, I don't drink a lot of coffee, but drinking too much coffee can shrink your brain. Then they tell you to drink coffee. I feel this way.
Yeah.
No one gets out of this world alive. Yes, you should eat healthy. Yes, you should maintain a healthy diet. And you could, and exercise and all that. You can do all that and you still are going to die of something. So
Yeah.
that's how I look at it.
Yeah. That's so true. That's so true. Tell me about, okay, so you touched on some really interesting things. And tell me about the caregiving experience and why it was difficult right till the end of his life.
Wow. It's a whole show in itself. Um, Caregiving, excuse me, I did not know actually with my mother-in-law about Alzheimer's. So I say she took me to Alzheimer's school. And back 20 years ago, there really wasn't the information there is today. Caregivers have an advantage today. Doctors know more, and there's a lot more information.
Mm-hmm.
Caregiving taught me unconditional love, taught my son unconditional love. You can teach your children valuable life lessons. I learned valuable life lessons. Being patient,
Mm-hmm.
being that soul connection.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe this with all my heart. Any dementia cannot rob the heart of love.
Oh,
They know and they feel that love right to the
wow.
end. I believe that. And
Yeah.
I had an epiphany the other day. People might think I'm a little cuckoo. Oh, I guess I am. Uh, Hearing is the last sense to go. I was taught that in nursing school. Don't talk to, about the patient. And I think I know why, Lauren. In my own opinion, God created us that way so that even if you're unconscious, you can hear your loved one to the end. And I believe that's why hearing is the last to go. And you just connect on a different way. When your loved one can't talk and you're talking to them, they know, they hear you, they feel you. And I had to fight with hospice. I had, unfortunately, the hospice hell from home experience. They thought they were dealing with a quiet, meek housewife. They soon found out different. You do not disrespect my loved one or me. And I told that director of hospice, I'm my husband's advocate. I told the social worker, they told me I called up hospice too much. They didn't believe that Matt was agitated. They thought I was giving the medication wrong. I had to fight to get him the help, and that should never be. Matt fell twice and nobody would come out. That's a disgrace. They didn't believe me he was at the end of life. And I told that hospice nurse, the home hospice nurse, she goes, he can't be at the end of life. He's walking, he's talking, he's eating. And I said, think outside the textbook, educate yourself, because he is at the end of life. 2 weeks later, he was dead. Hospice, all hospices and doctors and nurses really need to be trained, because they're going to see more people with a younger onset Alzheimer's or maybe frontal temporal lobe. They're not going to fit your textbook picture of somebody being bedridden in bed. They might be walking around and be terminally agitated. And they need to listen to the caregiver. And I told that social worker, who was not a nice person, that I'm telling my people, my support group, we're not taking this crap anymore. And I told caregivers, you need to advocate for your loved one and you need to speak up, or there won't be any changes. And I caused a tsunami in that hospital. They knew who they were dealing with. People would come into my room to see who I was. But I will fight for my husband. I will fight. I'm a mama bear. I just will
Yeah.
fight.
Yeah. You fight for what's right.
Yes.
I
And I
agree.
learned that from my son.
Yeah, I'm sure. Well, I appreciated the lessons that you were that you picked up with unconditional love, and also the the human spirit. The fact that that you understand that there's the soul connection. I really appreciate that. Whatever people's journey is, not everyone are spiritually or religiously inclined, but it's actually a really nice thing to maybe hold on to, particularly when it is Alzheimer's. Because you're thinking that, well, he's just forgotten you, right? And you're saying, go ahead.
Yeah, there's that connection. Yeah, but he didn't forget us. It was so weird, Lauren. I mean, Matt would say Joshua's name. He called me Booby. Close enough.
Yeah.
But if I asked him my name, he would say Betsy. Sometimes he didn't know, but he knew me as Booby.
Mm-hmm.
And, I say that Alzheimer's, yes, took Matt away, but Alzheimer's gave me so much in return.
Mm.
And it's a positive mindset. You can survive caregiving and you can thrive in it. I did. And if I could do it, anyone could do it.
Yeah.
But you have to have that mindset. I learned my power. I discovered my power and my gifts and my voice thanks to Matt's journey. And I would never be in front of the camera otherwise.
Well, yeah, this is true. It's funny how that is, right? When things come up in life and they bring us to something.
Yes.
And it's kind of like sometimes we don't know how to accept those gifts, because in those moments, if you're the person that's going through something personally, or if you're in the caregiving, we always kind of want to wish them away. But once you
Mhm.
get to the other side, whether someone passes or when someone goes through something critical and gets to the other side, there is a beauty in reflecting back something, that we've cultivated a sense of wisdom. So we can pass it on to someone else, right? In the sense of paying it forward. I'm sure that this podcast that you have created here, chatting with Betsy, you've probably have paid it forward tenfold, correct?
I hope so. I like to think so. Funny how that happened. I never set out to be a podcaster 3 years ago. I didn't even know what a podcast
Hey,
was.
right, right.
I'm middle aged. I only knew about 2 internet stations. I always wanted someone to discover me for an interview. And I used to do videos in my car to raise awareness
Oh
and give
yeah,
caregiver tips.
yeah.
And Jeannie White, who's station manager at Passion World Talk Radio Network, happened to see me one day on Facebook and asked me to do an interview. And I was so happy. And then I was shocked because Jeannie asked me to speak on her show weekly. I didn't have any professional experience
Yeah,
speaking publicly.
yeah.
She said, "That's okay, Betsy, you speak from your heart." And then after a year, she said, "Betsy, I think you should have your own show." I said, "I can't. I don't know how to interview people." She said, "You'll learn." So I did, and I cannot believe who I have interviewed. I really, I, I'm an Alzheimer's advocate, mental health. My show is about a variety of topics, whatever the guest is going to talk about. But my two passions are Alzheimer's, anything with caregiving, and mental health.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The
Yeah.
stigma has to stop.
All right. I was just going to actually say that word. Um, all right. Yeah. What do you see that still, what do you think we're afraid of when it comes to mental health?
We're afraid of being judged.
Hmm?
Um, I did an interview with an emergency room doctor last November. They're having a crisis because of COVID. They get penalized for going for mental health counseling. This should not be.
So,
People are afraid to go for counseling. Suicide rate is up. The
yeah,
drug overdose, and even with young children and adolescents, there's waiting lists now. to see a mental health professional, and people are judged. I say this, Lauren, I've gone for counseling. I still go for counseling. I go for grief counseling, and I'm proud of it. I encourage everyone to go for counseling because nobody knows what life is going to throw at you. Don't throw stones. You don't know what's going to come in your life, and you might need help at some point. Do you want to be made fun of? Do you want to be called names? I don't think so.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be a shame.
I agree. I totally agree. I hope that these conditionings that still occur today stop. But these are very deeply systemic things. Either, you know, we can go on and on about that. But okay, well, I appreciate you saying that. Tell me something about the eyesight. I was really interested in that. About he lost his eyesight. Is that a condition that Alzheimer's does?
Yes, his perception. They lose their perception changes.
Okay,
And he loved to read.
right.
Matt would read newspaper, books, and he couldn't read. And
Ah,
I'd say, well, what's going on? He would say
wow.
the words were jumbled, they would jump around.
Mm-hmm.
And he also couldn't see something that was right in front of him.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know that at the time that their vision gets affected until I watched the video and learned. This is why this is why I say educate yourself. I educated myself. And then I would say, oh, okay, now I know why he doesn't see. I used to say, Matt, what do you mean you can't see? It's right in front of you. He couldn't see it. And I'll throw out a caregiving tip. That's why you should put food on a red plate for someone who has dementia so they could see the food. A
Oh, wow.
red plate
Oh,
gives
interesting.
vibrant, color.
Right. Wow, that's very interesting. Thank you for that.
You're welcome. But
Um,
these
did
are
you,
tricks I learned.
what's that? Sorry?
These are tricks I learned from other caregivers.
Yeah, right. Um, had you thought of reading to him aloud?
No, I didn't. He didn't want that.
You didn't eat? Okay. Yeah, I was curious. Yeah, there's a book that I'm actually reading called The Enchanted Hour and the importance of reading to your children, but as a whole, just reading aloud. It's a very interesting thing because now that you've mentioned what you've mentioned about, our, our hearing going, the last thing is that we have, right? Well, I don't know, there's something about all that. Um, What has apart from what has this experience really taught you about life?
Wow, so much. Do not take life for granted.
Huh?
Do not take anything for granted, and appreciate each day and live each day to the fullest. And do what you can while you still can, because no one's guaranteed to be in perfect health their whole life.
Yeah.
No, it just one car accident, one illness. Um, and my brother passed away this January at the age of 67. He had memory problems, but he wasn't formally diagnosed. And really, you have to just live each day as it is a gift, because it is a gift.
If you had to give some caregivers just some extra tips apart from that red plate, what would they be?
Educate yourself,
Hmm.
do self-care. Self-care is not selfish. It is not optional. It
Okay.
is literally a matter of life and death. Too many caregivers are dying before their loved one. Too many caregivers get sick right after their loved one dies because they're stressed and they get illnesses. You
Oh,
have to take care of yourself
yeah,
as much as you can.
that's a really good point. Very, very good point, actually, now that I'm thinking about that. Very good point. Um, what about dreams? What's next for you?
I don't know. uh, I would like to keep doing, what I'm doing. Hopefully get sponsors so I could get income because I'm unemployed right now. But that's what I would like. I really don't know. I would hope people will ask me for speaking engagements.
Well, you could write to Maria Shriver,
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's true.
right? She's a Alzheimer's advocate.
Right.
Yeah.
Um,
What's been the most mysterious thing to you about Alzheimer's?
you know, Lauren, there's no rhyme or
Mm,
reason or smooth
right.
path how this disease works. It's not linear. They could hold their own for whatever time, and then they drop, progress, and you don't know how much. It's just an unpredictable disease. The only thing we know is that they will die. What happens from time of diagnosis to the time of death, how long, it varies with everybody.
Yeah.
Everyone is different.
Yeah. Do you know why is it, forgive me my ignorance, but do you know why they die from it?
Well, your brain controls everything.
Oh
So
yeah,
their
that's
brain
obvious, right?
actually dying.
It
Yeah, their
it what,
brain's
sorry?
dying.
It's what, sorry?
Their brain is dying.
Yeah, I see. Okay.
So your brain controls everything.
Right.
The walking, chewing, swallowing.
Yes, yes, yes. Yeah,
Sometimes they get infections.
all right.
Um,
Yeah.
you know, it depends on their health and how old you are.
Mhm.
Matt was healthy. He was healthy except for his brain.
Mhm.
So he lived 10 years
Mhm.
from the time of diagnosis.
Well, I imagine there's ongoing research in this field because we probably still don't know a lot about it. I don't know. Um, but if you'd like to dedicate this time together to your husband, and I want to thank you
Yes,
for sharing yourself, absolutely sharing yourself. And this story, it's a precious story. I think that we're like these small specks of people on earth, right? And we have this moment right here that you and I have shared and that we've crossed paths that I'm grateful for.
thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, my husband's name is Matthew
Hmm.
Sloan.
Hmm. And what would you like to say in closing about Matthew Sloan and anything else?
I thanked Matt when he was dying for his journey and
Mm,
how it made me a better person. And I'm going to get emotional. I promised that I would carry on, and I am.
yeah, that's
And you
understandable.
have to find your,
What's
yeah, all
what's
caregivers
right?
should find their purpose
Hmm. Well,
because you do have a purpose.
mm. Well, thank you so much again from the West Coast to the East Coast and
Thank
vice
you.
versa.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, yeah,
Thanks for having me, Lauren.
it's my pleasure. Thanks so much. So if you want to catch Betsy on Chatting with Betsy, and there's a multiple 2 years worth of stories there. If you know anyone who is experiencing mental health or their loved one um, in the state of Alzheimer's, check it out. Okay, you can find her all across the social media platforms. Spotify is one of the areas you can do that. So thanks again for joining me on Tea and Chocolate, and take good care of yourselves. Bye for now.